Hey everybody, is it really alive if you don't start kind of late? Got David J with us. Just getting ready. Yep, we are live now on Instagram as well. No, John is unable to join us tonight. He's going to be otherwise engaged. So it's just me, David. Bear with me this evening. This is my first time doing this whole live thing by myself. Got no training wheels on, just learning how to do all this. So some of the stuff's familiar, but some of this is new. So, all right, welcome to Hard Time. This is our first live Q&A that we've done. I've got a couple stories and stuff that we can share, some things to give us some updates on what's going on in the world of corrections. So one of the first ones, we just reissued the episode about the Idaho escape. So it came out as episode 110 recently. So I have a article on that from the Idaho Statesman that actually has some more information about that case. So we'll get into that while people are joining the live. Maybe it'll just be me and David J tonight. We'll see. So Idaho correctional officer injured in prison escape files tort claim against Boise police. So Boise police responded to what they thought was an active shooter at the hospital. An IDOC officer was shot by a police officer who mistook him to be a gunman near the entrance. Okay. Boise, Idaho. An Idaho Department of Corrections employee was shot and injured by another officer during an ambush at the St. Alphonsus Regional Medical Center has filed a tort claim against the officer's agency. IDOC Corporal Christopher Wilski filed a $5,000 claim against Boise Police Department for physical damages he incurred during the shooting, according to a claim for damage obtained by the Idaho Statesman through a public record request. Wilski was one of the 3 correctional officers injured during the prison escape at Boise Hospital. Skylar Mead, an Idaho man serving a minimum 10-year prison sentence, fled from custody after Nicholas Umfenauer, his co-conspirator, planned an ambush on officers at the St. Alphonsus Hospital. Mead and Umfenauer were found in the Twin Falls area, arrested and charged in March with several felonies. The other 2 officers, Daniel Lopez and Elijah Jackson, were shot and injured by Umfenauer. All 3 officers survived, though IDOC hasn't disclosed whether they are all back at work. Wilski was shot minutes after the Boise Police Department responded to what they believed was an active shooter at St. Alphonsus, according to police. When the officers arrived at the scene, they saw an individual holding a gun near the entryway, prompting Boise police officer Wayne Anderson to shoot and injure him. The person holding the gun was later identified as Wilski. The gunfire from either a bullet or shrapnel damaged Wilski's eye. Ada County Deputy Prosecutor Heather Riley said during Mead's sentencing, Riley contributed to the injury to Mead and Umfenauer, causing chaos during the attack. Wilski suffered problems with his vision and dealt with migraines and fractures to his facial bones, according to the complainant. IDOC Director Josh DeWallet previously said it was heartbreaking to see how much Anderson blamed himself. I want to say it again, and I'll say it as many times as I have to. There's not a person who was involved in the events that morning, including our staff member who was ultimately wounded, who has nothing but appreciation for BPD showing up when and how they did, DeWallet said. The Ada County Sheriff's Office is leading the Critical Incident Task Force investigation into Anderson's shooting. The Sheriff's Office didn't immediately respond to an email seeking an update on the investigation Friday. Mead was sentenced to at least 35 years in prison for his actions in the ambush, and Umfenauer, who pleaded guilty to half a dozen charges, included 3 counts of assault upon certain personnel for shooting the officers, is expected to be sentenced next month. So there we have a little update on what's going on. Let me check and see, switch accounts here, and see if anybody has any comments if they've joined our live. Okay, David J., do you have anything for me before I continue on with other news stories? All right. I'm going to continue with another news story. So that's our update. We also have here Minnesota Department of Corrections. We have several prison staff taken to hospital after suspected exposure to synthetic marijuana. So I guess comments on that last story, I get, I totally understand why he's got the tort, losing vision and stuff during the shooting. Also, you would hope that being uniformed, that the responding police would understand what's going on. But again, if you're involved in like a self-defense shooting or something, like it's always a good idea to make sure you identify yourself or to, follow whatever directions local police have. If the local police, even if you're not the shooter and they're telling you to put your gun down, it's probably good to put the gun down and to identify yourself. I'm not sure whether that happened or not in this instance. All we have are the news stories. We don't have body cam footage or anything that I've seen, but yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the guy dealing with that, and for the officer must feel terrible about just being involved in that and shooting the wrong guy, or maybe shooting at him. And they said it could have possibly been shrapnel, I guess. But damn, it's just a tough situation all around. I don't think there's anything, seeking $500,000 in damages. He's probably just hopefully trying to get like his affairs in order with medical bills and things like that. That's not an exorbitant amount of money. Sorry, I muted there for a second. All right, so let's get into the second news story. Minnesota DOC, several prison staff taken to hospital after suspected exposure to synthetic marijuana. So this is by Nick Ferraro of the Pioneer Press. Recent investigation into other incidents at Stillwater identified the presence of MDMB4EN PINACA, which has been soaked into paper and dried, the Minnesota DOC said. So here in Stillwater, Minnesota, 9 staff members of the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Stillwater, were taken to the hospital Thursday for evaluation after an inmate smoked suspected synthetic marijuana, and then a second inmate threw a container with an unknown substance from his cell, Minnesota Department of Corrections officials said. One staff member was given Narcan after experiencing symptoms, but one was transported by paramedics. All but one, was transported by paramedics. By Thursday afternoon, all 9 had been treated and released. They included 6 correctional officers, 2 health services staff, and a member of the maintenance staff. The prison was put on lockdown, which will remain in place through Friday, DOC Commissioner Paul Schell said at the news conference. According to the DOC, corrections officers responded to a cell just before 8 a.m. on a report of an inmate smoking an unknown substance. One officer experienced an adverse reaction that included lightheadedness, nausea, and an increased heart rate. He was taken by ambulance to Lakeview Hospital in Stillwater. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had to kick the cat out. Hopefully you guys didn't hear too much of that. It says within a half hour, 2 other correctional officers and a maintenance staff member reported experiencing similar reactions and were taken to the hospital. Later, another 3 officers who had responded to the incident or worked in the living unit began feeling ill. 2 were taken to the hospital. Separately, but in the same housing unit, an inmate threw a container of an unknown substance from his cell, landed near staff. 3 staff experienced illness and were also transported to the hospital. The inmate who was caught smoking the substance told investigators he had smoked a stronger than expected dose of synthetic marijuana, the DOC said. While investigators have not completed testing for the specific substance from this incident, recent investigations have identified the presence of MDMB-4EN PINACA, soaked into a paper and dried, the DOC said. PINACA is a indazole-based synthetic cannabinoid that is often purchased online and can be introduced in the facility through the mail. Seeking solution. The DOC and other correctional agencies across the country are using a number of strategies to stop synthetic substances from reaching inmates, including scanning mail through detection equipment. The Minnesota DOC also recently began photocopying mail at 3 prisons, including the one in Stillwater, as part of a pilot project, said Schnell. In June, a 22-year-old inmate was found dead in his cell at Stillwater Prison. Schnell said at the time they believed he ingested synthetic drugs. These synthetic substances are particularly dangerous because the chemical properties that comprise them are unknown and uncontrolled, he said Thursday. We are prioritizing our investigative efforts to identify and prosecute those responsible for conspiring and to introduce these substances into the secure correctional environment. Schnell added, for the safety of all our staff, we are reviewing and updating our emergency response protocols to suspected drug incidents. So that's another tough one. It's a nice low-tech way of being able to deal with it, is to be able to scan the mail and not be giving them stuff directly. Have to be really careful with that stuff, whether you're ingesting it, getting it on your gloves. Even getting it on your gloves, you can get secondary from touching your face or touching other things when you're dealing with that kind of substance. So got to be careful with that. All right. So we have Elijah K and Abby has also joined us. Will Cray. Hey, Will Cray. Do you guys have any questions for me about any recent episodes or any questions you'd like to ask? Trying to watch both comment feeds here, both on StreamYard on YouTube as well as Instagram. So you can get a hold of me either way. Okay, I haven't gone as far as sharing the videos with others yet. Just give you guys a couple hours head notice that we're gonna do a live. I know it's short notice for people. It's Saturday evening, so they've got other things planned. Now I see what John was talking about with all of the comments, all your comments coming up here with a timestamp. So Will, did you have any questions for me? Anything insightful? Okay, while you guys think about that, we'll get some more news going. This is an interesting one here at Pima County Jail. They've had a rash of officers that have died, which not all of them have been on duty, but it's just strange that one agency would have this many deaths in a short span. So this article is by Natalie Robbins. This is from the Sentinel. And it says corrections officer who drowned last month was the 6th Pima County Jail CO to die in 8 months. It says on July 24th, 20-year-old Brian Torres of Nogales drowned in Patagonia Lake on a day off with his family and friends. Torres had been employed as a corrections officer with the Pima County Sheriff's Department for a little over a year. Torres is the 6th Pima County Corrections Officer, or CO, to die in the last 8 months. These officers' causes of death range from accidental drowning, in the case of Torres, to suicide, cancer, and unspecified medical issues, according to data provided by the PCSD. 2 more retired officers died from cancer during the same trial period. It's been very hard on the people that work at the jail. These are their friends, and they've grown up with these people, said PCSD Lieutenant Heather Lappin, the Republican challenger to Pima County Sheriff's Office Chris Nanos in November's election. It's just been surreal, Lappin said. Lappin is the coordinator for PCSD's Wellness Division, formed last year. The Wellness Division provides counseling to employees after the death of a staff member, among other services. We're going to need a wellness team for our wellness team, Nano said. Because of this, they've been seeing so much of this. They've just been seeing so much of this. The sheriff said the department only recently began keeping track of CO deaths, so they do not have data for previous years to compare, though the current recent number does seem unusual. The Pima County Adult Detention Complex employs about 423 corrections officers, overseeing a population of around 1,600 inmates, Nanos said this summer. The sheriff department had numerous difficulties hiring in the jail in the past few years. In 2022, Nanos told the Pima County Board of Supervisors he lost 30% of his employees in a year. At one point, 3 COs were quitting their jobs every week. Now Nanos says he's fully staffed and at the authorized level, though recruiting and retaining COs is still a challenge. Research has long so that's the thing. When they say they're fully staffed, that could also be not quite fully staffed. That doesn't mean staffed at 100%, 100% on the floor. That could mean you have people who are in training, who are going down the pipeline, however long that takes to fill positions. They consider them fully staffed at that point. You could also have different situations with people going out the door. So they're fully staffed, but they have their notice in. So they're going to be leaving soon. So, yeah, you're not fully staffed until everybody hits the floor, everybody's working. And you also could have a vacancy rate, acceptable vacancy rate of 10, 20%, something like that. And that could be, what they're talking about. Maybe they have 80% of staff with people that are leaving and people that are coming. They're at 80% short time. So I'm going to continue with this article and then I'll answer Will Cray's question. It says research has long proved that corrections officers suffer from higher rates of physical and mental illness than other groups. A 2009 study of officers in New Jersey found that corrections officers committed suicide at a rate at double the police officers and 5.5 times the general population. Another study from 1983 found COs are more likely to have high blood pressure than other professions and are 2.5 times more likely to develop heart disease than police officers. Arizona has the highest concentration of corrections officers of any state in the U.S., according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Arizona employs 13,260 corrections officers at a median wage of $26.12. It's a hard job, Nanos told the Sentinel in an interview last December. How many people say, "Oh, I want to be a correctional officer when I grow up"? That's true. It's the health concerns of the job are difficult to deal with. Will Cray has a question for me. He asked, what's one of the recent episodes you've been really proud to put out? I really liked our Death Row series that we've been doing. Also, I really liked the 108 and 109, the deprivation of liberty. John and I had a really good time making that episode. It felt like an old OG hard time episode. We were doing a lot of laughing and joking back and forth and just piling on to each other. I know Abby commented that she really enjoyed listening to that episode. So that one was a lot of fun to make. I think We Aren't Marshall was probably kind of goes into my wheelhouse a little more, dealing with the juvenile corrections and, just like what realistic expectations and stuff are for that. So that's been a really good one. Really good one that I enjoyed. I mean, there's a bunch of been doing a lot of drones lately. That's been number one thing. I shared that we even had a drone fly over our facility recently, so we weren't able to notice anything contraband wise or anything that came from it, but luckily I haven't dealt with any explosive drones lately. Haven't had to call the Army in to blow anything up, so that's good. Appreciate the question, Will. And we're almost halfway through the live, so I'm gonna go as long as Instagram will let me go, and then we'll probably turn this into an episode that we can hopefully John can edit for me, because I had a cat and stuff. We can edit down and then be able to release for those that weren't able to join us live. So, but I appreciate David J and Will Cray logging in, and especially Will Cray for having a question for me. So I guess I have a question for those that are listening. What's something that you want to hear from Hard Time? I put that out a few times. Like, what are some subjects and stuff? Salamander gave me the information for We Aren't Marshall, and then she gave me the stuff for episodes. So we still had some Marshall content that we just put out, but we're gonna be doing some more content that she's presented to us. So maybe we'll give you a little sneak peek of that at some point. So, or I guess we could do it right now. You've heard a lot of, we at the jail I work at, we had a canine program for many years. We had like longer term inmates that would serve like longer term sentences, and we had them on for a little while, up until probably the last 4 years or so. I'm going to have my like 4th or 5th sergeant review coming up here next week. So next week, or they'll be late. So I'll get my little raise and get to sit down with admin for a few minutes and go over my performance over the last year. So that should be fun. But that program that we had for the dogs was because they were having difficulty adopting some of these dogs out at the rates that they were coming into the shelter, and they're having trouble with training them. And a lot of people were asking, can these dogs be trained? Are any of them trained? And the ones that had training were more likely to get adopted. So they started this program where the inmates would adopt 2 dogs, had to be a female dog, because we had problems with the male dogs. Won't get into that, but with inmates messing with the dogs. But we had this program going for many years where they would take the dog in, and they had it was like a 6-week program, I believe, something like that, maybe a little more and maybe a little less, where they would teach the dogs basic obedience, some tricks and skills, and potty train them and all that kind of stuff. And then the dog would perform a test, and if the dog passed, then it would be awarded a certificate. And they do like a little photo op with the inmates, and there's a bunch of photos used to be on the wall of inmates with their dogs that they put through the program. So as the graduation rate kind of dipped down, we started doing a lot less with them, and then eventually the program stopped. So we still have a dog that went through the program. She didn't get completely trained by the inmates. She's more of an officer's dog. She follows the officers around. Some people have seen her on my Instagram from time to time. She's a German Shepherd mutt mix. And yeah, so that dog we kept on at the facility, which has been good. It's good for the officers. It's good for inmates occasionally, almost like a therapy dog that we have going on. And then she's been able to stick around the facility. She actually belongs to the shelter, but we still have her. So I've got the Instagram reel from Salamander about a feline program, a cat program that they have with inmates. So I just looked up one article on it. Haven't done a big deep dive yet. So we have enough stuff for Hard Time, but we're going to do that. John had mentioned too, he wants to review Love on the Run. We're going to do that. And then we also have like the John Durham. We still need to review like the footage of him with what he had going on. So his unfortunate death by an inmate that was in custody that attempted an escape. So those are some things you can look forward to on hard times, some things coming down the pipe. It's going to be a lot of me going on and a little bit of John here from time to time. He's been still doing Fridays with me. He's like that with just kind of lessening his workload a little bit. So Elijah asked, do you know how facilities are trying to be proactive about drones? It seems like you can only react, and there aren't any conventional drone techs, as there aren't any conventional drone tactics yet. So one thing for if you have a large drone problem, have been the biggest thing with the drones is contraband. So I've seen proactive where they have, it's very complicated to like intercept the drone and be able to pilot it or interrupt that signal. Do those types of things are kind of difficult to do. That's probably beyond what most facilities would be able to do. In Guayaquil, Ecuador, the only reason they were able to do that is because it's such a failed state, such a failed prison system there that the army had taken over the prison. So they had access to military equipment that most facilities won't. But a low-tech solution like they've done in France for helicopters has also been employed for drones is netting. If you put netting over the areas, the rec yards and areas where they could get to the prison, like our jail, we have large full metal grates. It's cut out kind of like you'd see on like a welding cage, but it's full steel beams going across the inner rec yards, and they have that mesh so that allows some airflow and some sunlight, but nothing large can get through those grates. So it's only like a 1 inch by ½ inch openings that they have to be able to get any type of contraband in. Now, if our facility, we have the angled barbed wire and razor wire over our rec yards, and then the inner fence has razor wire and barbed wire on it as well. So that inner perimeter, they could put something in there, but the inmates never get any access to that. They'd have to go into the rec yard, which is a big, large open area. So we'd be looking at something low tech like netting, or they do have like some specialty shotgun rounds and stuff, but that's difficult because the jail was built in not a residential area. It used to be like a big sand pit, but where people would dump stuff appropriately. But they've built up, and things are getting built up closer and closer around the jail. So there's like less room to expand, and things are getting closer and closer to it. So you want to be really careful trying to intercept something. I don't think they would probably let a corrections officer with a shotgun shoot that for fear that something would happen inside or outside the perimeter, inside the wire. We don't want even people getting peppered with BBs and stuff. If you've ever had that happen before, it's just not a pleasant experience. It's not that it's that difficult or that crazy, but yeah. So for drones, those are the things that I can think of off the top of my head that have been used to counteract drones. But advanced jamming and that sort of thing would be, John's brought up like the FCC regulations and stuff. It'd be difficult to do for a small agency. So for drones, just being proactive, we have motion sensor cameras and stuff, maybe adding some more cameras to the rec yard, because those motion sensitive cameras are not foolproof. Like there is a range that they're capable of reaching, and then outside of that, if you are on the edge or outside of that range, it's not going to pick things up. So we have multiple cameras, but we'd have to probably add some more to make sure it was effective enough that we would be picking up small objects like a little DJI drone trying to drop something in a rec yard. So what we've done is just a bunch of perimeter checks, making sure that perimeter checks are getting done all the time, making sure that there's multiple officers whenever they use the yard. So if they needed to go intercept something that had been dropped, the officers would be able to do that, or we could send somebody to do that. Okay, do you got anybody else have any more questions for me? Appreciate Elijah and Will Cray chiming in there. I know I have just a couple listeners on this stream, so. Okay. Well, while you guys are looking for some more questions and stuff you want to put up, we talked about canines and stuff a little bit in here, canines and felines. So I have an article here. This is Virginia CO canine honored for heroic actions in restoring order during prison altercation. So this is by Sarah Roebuck. This is actually in Washington. CO Carmetia Philip Fields and her partner Canine Rivian were named Officers of the Month following an altercation that led to inmates attacking and killing Canine Rivian. Washington. A corrections officer and her canine partner were honored for their heroic actions following an altercation at the Sussex State Prison in Virginia. So this is near Washington, not Washington State. Corrections officer Karashima Philip Fields and her partner Canine Rivian were named Officers of the Month for April 2024 by the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund for the actions they took to restore order during a prison altercation in which Canine Rivian paid the ultimate sacrifice. Their actions exemplify the highest standards of valor and dedication in law enforcement, with Rivian's legacy serving as a profound reminder of the bond between canine officers and their human partners, said Williams Alexander, CEO of NL EOMF. On April 2nd, 3 inmates associated with the MS-13 gang attacked another inmate in one of the facility's housing units, the Virginia Department of Corrections said. A 4th inmate seemed to be supervising the assault. Phillips, Fields, and Canine Rivian were on duty near the area of the incident when the attack occurred. Phillips, Fields, and Rivian intervened to stop the attack, protect the inmates, and restore order. During the effort to control the situation, Rivian was violently and repeatedly stabbed and kicked by the inmates. Despite attempts at life-saving measures by the VA DOC staff, Rivian later died at the facility. Phillips Fields did not sustain serious injuries and attributed her safety to Rivian's courageous actions. The Officer of the Month Award program, sponsored by the Police Unity Tour, honors federal, state, and local law officers who demonstrate exceptional law enforcement service and unwavering dedication to duty, they stated. So it's a sad story, but it's amazing what they're able to do these days with canines. They have canine officers that are able to sniff out not just the normal things like you think about. Drugs is a big thing, contraband that they would look for, but they also can sniff out like microchips and things like that, so they can be used to find electronics such as cell phones. Talked about cell phones a lot on the podcast being a issue. It's a big problem for contraband because they're able to continue their criminal enterprises while behind bars. They're able to organize hits on people that work at the jail or people outside. And yeah, it's just it's amazing what they're able to do with these canines. We had a canine a while back that was named Harley, that we used to they went through that program with the juveniles where they were supposed to be training it, but they, like I said, they kind of fell off doing those sorts of things, being able to really follow the program. So the officers took up her training, and she was, when we did cell and body checks, she would stand just outside the cell, and if the inmate moved at all, she would be barking at the inmates. So she was very much the officer's dog, not the inmates. Elijah has another question for us: is whether for drones or other problems, what are the architectural aspects of facilities that need to change for the future? Sprinkler access and bad sally ports seem to come up often. Yeah, you're retrofitting a lot of older jails with sprinklers and things like that. The other thing is you want to have sprinklers to be up to fire code, but sprinklers get popped all the time. So most normal people don't realize that, like, a sprinkler is, you have a little piece of basically a little piece of plastic up in there that will melt. When that melts, the sprinkler head pops down, and that system's constantly pressurized. So that allows that when the sprinkler head pops down, it starts to spray. So for somebody to break that little sprinkler head just to be an asshole and to try to flood the place, it doesn't take very much. You can just push it with your finger. So he had ones that were flatter, that had the piece up inside. The little piece that melts was up inside of it, and it would break off, and then there would be two pieces of metal that would fly off, like kind of like a disintegrating link on a machine gun. Would just fly off of the thing, and it would pop down and start spraying. Now we have ones that are the third generation of sprinklers that we have are actually like almost completely flat, and it's all up inside, and it doesn't have like moving pieces. So even though the other one was low profile, you could still like stick a piece of your uniform or a mattress, the cover from a mattress or a pillowcase or something on it, get it hooked on there and pull it down. The new ones are almost completely flush, so you don't have as many issues with that, with trying to make sure that people aren't tampering with them. Another thing that we would probably do is, depending on your state and local laws, a lot of times the state will have, it'll say that you have to have certain amounts of sunlight requirements. So if you're not able to do yard time a lot of places will retrofit skylights and things like that. But what they did at my facility is those inner rec yards that they have, they just put like big windows to the main hallway from there. They said it's so that you can like look into the facility. If the cameras are down, you can look in there and kind of know what's going on. In the cell block, it's difficult to block that many windows and stuff, but it just turns into just a lot of smashed windows. And it also is written in the penal code that we have to have, like, they have to be kept sight and sound from each other, segregated, whether that's different genders, however many of those there are, or people that are co-conspirators and things like that. But it's very difficult when you're using that corridor to keep people from seeing each other, and that's a big issue that we have at our facility. But yeah, I mean, now retrofitting things for drones would be a big challenge. We have, I forget, there's a square footage per inmate that you're supposed to have, and we have like a full basketball court, a full volleyball court, and then there's more space around it. So there's space for them to like walk around the track, and they also have sections of it that are set aside for a garden. So It's a pretty large voluminous space to have to try to retrofit. But yeah, the architectural aspects, the cameras and stuff have gotten really good. They have really good cameras for like fisheye angles and stuff where they can get like, they're kind of like the Insta 360 type cameras, where you can get almost every corner of a room covered by a single camera. There's very, very few blind spots these days. So that's the number one thing that we've been retrofitting month to month, is they build cameras into the budget. So one of the cameras that I asked for in the rec yard, they put in a few years ago, even though that was kind of a production. But it's good to have multiple angles on the rec yards. And I think the next one would be like the dining room. Those are the two areas where the most fights and stuff occur, because they get a good idea of what those camera angles and stuff are, and they try to manipulate those. So those are the things that we're always working on, trying to retrofit. It's difficult. The older the building, the more difficult it must be. But ours was just poorly designed. The person that designed it had a big hand in the design, was basically an office secretary that became over the corrections. So that person did not have a lot of practical knowledge about how to build a facility, or like what fixtures and stuff are going to cause issues versus ones that don't. It takes a humble person to like ask maintenance or something like, hey, if you were building a facility, what fixtures would you use? Because even though it might be a little more initial startup, it's going to be a lot cheaper in the long run to maintain things that are more ubiquitous. If it's a pretty standard, robust fixture, it's going to be a lot easier to repair. You're going to find parts for it everywhere, and we find ourselves retrofitting a lot of stuff, which I will say my administration is really good at. That they take the time to listen to those types of concerns, and we regularly give them things that they will build into the budget to work on. So we're not going to get a secure parking structure. That's just not in the cards. So more secure access than we have now, which would be nice, but we just have to deal with what we have to deal with. But it's a good question, Elijah. Thank you. Is there any other questions about corrections, or any ideas for episodes that you'd like to see? Because we have a few minutes left, I did pick up some Jake jokes for you. So since we're winding down here on our live, there was this guy, he got a job at the zoo. He was circumcising elephants. The pay wasn't good, but the tips are huge. I know, it's weird just saying dad jokes out into the ether and not getting the live reaction back, the feedback from John, the disgust on his face. His consternation at not being able to figure it out, and then also like just the disbelief that people that enjoy his brand of humor would listen to these kind of jokes. What's the best way to watch a fly fishing tournament? Live streaming. It's the best way. Live stream. Okay, guys. Oh, Falconator's on there. Falksy, do you have any questions for me, or any suggestions for some hard time episodes? Maybe a subject or a specific case. Oh, because you just joined us. Oh, just lost my. Let me click on it. Click back on the live feed. Here we go. Okay, she'll have to dive into some more. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me this evening. We're gonna probably drop this as a regular episode. I'll probably try to do this with some more. We'll figure out what's a better time. And I would have Madge join, but she's wrangling our juveniles right now, our 4 and under crowd. Yes, we can try to produce some reels out of this, Elijah. So if you don't have time to sit down and do the whole live stream, I will try to do that. I'm new to this, so I don't have like the ability to do like call-ins and stuff as of right now, but that's something I might be able to do in the future if we're doing more regular lives. And I might try to make this a weekly feature. So DM me, let me know what is a good time. This is kind of an early evening episode. Seems like a lot of people are working on stuff, so I need to probably do an earlier one. Maybe I can do like a early Sunday or something like that. So I don't want to interfere with Hard Time or Com Center, those things that we have going on. Don't want to interfere with those lives. If you want to get some John, we'll get John back on here. But this one was just me shooting from the hip, just proof of concept, making sure this works, and just learning as we go. So being able to put you guys' comments up there. If you join the YouTube, it's easier to put your comments on StreamYard, but I've been reading your comments and stuff here on Instagram as well. Live streaming jokes about a live stream. Thank you, Elijah. Sorry, it's hard for me to be the lone person doing this, producing it, and also trying to be sharp and witty with the jokes. So, but appreciate you guys all following in, listening in here this evening. So I will say, listen to episodes of Hard Time. We still have new episodes coming out every Friday for members, and we're taking some of the older member-only episodes and releasing them. So there's still lots of content, so you can catch up on Hard Time if you haven't. And this is my first attempt at trying to add some extra content for you guys. So we may do something where it seems like it's mostly our diehard Hard Time fans that are on here. So we can have them maybe join, get a link so they can join the YouTube, so they can ask questions and comment, and then everybody else can just watch the live and try to enjoy. So, all right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'll say goodbye, Jake.